Okay, good morning students. Now let's carry on with the physics lesson number 11. We have reached up to defects of vision and their correction. Now we know that the human eye is absolutely superbly designed to capture light and form images. Along with the brain, it is able to sort of give us an idea of the world around us. Alright, now defects of vision and the correction. You see, as we grow older, the eye begins to lose its power of accommodation and its ability to focus at a distance and near at the same time. So what happens is a few refractive errors begin to creep up, or what is called defects of the eye begin to start occurring in humans as we grow older. Now unfortunately, you see these days the refractive errors of vision are seen even in young children as old as 3, 4 and 5 years old. I have seen 3 or 4 years old having glasses, okay, wearing spectacles. Now there are 3 main refractive defects of the vision. They are called myopia, hypermetropia or presbyopia, third one. Myopia or nearsightedness, hypermetropia or farsightedness, and presbyopia. These defects can be corrected by using suitable lenses, spherical lenses, convex or concave. But I look at the first one. Okay, myopia or nearsightedness. People who suffer from myopia or nearsightedness, okay, they generally, you see I have written a question here. Name the defects of the human eye. How can these defects be corrected? The defects of the human eye can be corrected by using spherical lenses, convex or concave, of appropriate focal length. Okay, and the other question is, what is myopia or nearsightedness? Explain with the help of a diagram. So this is an essay type question. You will have to explain with the help of a diagram what myopia is. Alright, now you can see the figure. There are 3 figures out here to explain nearsightedness. Such a person can see nearby things. For example, a young person, many of you are wearing glasses, okay, चश्मे पहन रहे हैं. अगर चश्मे के बिना अगर कुछ पढ़ना है तो आराम से पढ़ सकोगे, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी. लेकिन अगर दूर देखना है तो दिखाई देगा साफ, लेकिन it will not be very sharp and clear. So you require glasses, and those glasses are concave lenses. Alright, such a person is supposed to be suffering from myopia. The scientific word is myopia. The common word is nearsightedness. You are able to see near things quite clearly, but not far away. So here you can see the first case, a normal eye. Okay, in a normal eye, the object O and its image is formed perfectly on the retina, absolutely perfectly, and a sharp image is formed. In the second case, in a myopic eye, okay, the image is formed. You can see the rays of light, the blue rays of light. They are meeting in front of the retina, not on the red dot, not on the retina, and therefore the vision will be slightly blurred. It will not be sharp. The image will not be sharp. Now if you use concave length of appropriate focal length, then the rays of light will first diverge and the convex natural lens of the eye will again converge it. So you will be able to get a sharp image on the retina and your vision will be corrected. Of course, this is by using a concave lens, a negative lens, that is a negative focal length or negative diopters, -1, -1.5 and so on. What you must remember here is that younger people are also beginning to develop these problems. And why is it caused? Because of the weakening of the ciliary muscles. It is the ciliary muscles which hold it in place, hold the lens in place. And therefore, if the ciliary muscles become weak, then the lens can no longer change its focal length. And therefore, you have difficulty in seeing far and seeing near. Okay, so it's all about ciliary muscles, right? So this myopia or nearsightedness is caused when the rays of light do not meet exactly on the retina but slightly in front of the retina. That is the description here, same thing. Okay, so an image is formed in front of the retina rather than on the retina. And for correcting this, an appropriate focal length, concave lens having minus focal length, minus diopters is used so that you can see a sharp image on the retina. Alright, so that is, these 3 figures must be drawn. Okay, let us see hypermetropia. This hypermetropia is generally seen in older people. Older people, people over 40, 45 and so on, they wear reading glasses. Like for example, I am wearing reading glasses. These reading glasses have plus focal length. That is, they are made from, these lenses are made of actually what is called convex lenses. The natural lens is also a convex lens. This lens which I am wearing also is convex because it is used for reading. Okay. Now you can see, for a normal person who does not read reading glasses, you can see the image is formed. N is the near point object. N is the near point object. Okay, these blue rays of light They pass through the natural lens of the eye. Here you can see, and then the image is formed, sharp image is formed on the retina, and the person does not need glasses for reading. Look at a hypermetropic eye. Okay, a person who is suffering from farsightedness. Hypermetropia is farsightedness. That means the person can see far away very clearly, but any nearby object like reading, they find it difficult. Blurred vision. Alright, so what happens? The opposite happens. In this case, the image is formed behind the retina. See the red dot here. The image is formed behind the retina, and as a result, you can't see clearly. So to focus the images, focus the rays of light on the retina, a convex lens of appropriate focal length. You can see a convex lens is used. Okay, it will divert. It will just converge the rays of light a little bit, and now you will be able to see a sharp image on the retina. Okay, so a convex lens is used to correct hypermetropia. It has plus focal length plus diopters. Whereas to correct myopia or nearsightedness, you require a concave lens. Okay, so how they can be corrected? They can be corrected by convex and concave lenses. Okay, here what is hypermetropia or farsightedness? Explain with the help of a diagram how it can be corrected. Remember, you have to draw these figures. Okay, it must be drawn. Yes, suppose if it is asked only for 1 mark, you don't need to draw the figures. It could become too lengthy. But if the question is of 3 marks or 4 marks, then you must draw the figures also. Alright, and then the third type of defect of the human eye. The third type of defect of the human eye is presbyopia. You see, in my copy of this PDF copy of this particular lesson, I have marked out the answers also. Okay, so when I send these copies, my personal notes, to all those students who are very serious and doing, and I have marked those students, I will be giving these personal copies to them also, so they can study better. Some students are simply not doing anything. Alright, so what is presbyopia? You see, as we get older, 45, 50, 55, some people suffer from both nearsightedness as well as farsightedness, myopia as well as hypermetropia. This combination of both hypermetropia and myopia is called presbyopia. In other words, that person cannot see far very clearly, and he cannot see near also very clearly. Both problems are there. In other words, he requires glasses, that is prescription glasses for seeing objects far away, and he also requires prescription glasses for reading, a combination of both. And therefore such a person wears what is called bifocal glasses, bifocal lenses. उसके lenses देखो ना, तो नीचे के part में एक curved shape होता है, that those are plus numbers. Okay, convex lenses, and that allows the persons to read properly. The upper part is negative, that is concave lens, and that allows the person to see far away without changing the glasses. But some people prefer two spectacles, okay, a pair of spectacles for both. Some people want to have bifocal glasses, that is in one single. Older people, especially the older generation, you see today we have got different types of glasses, and they are called the progressive lenses. These progressive lenses that are used these days are different from bifocals. In a bifocal, you can see a curvature at the bottom of the lens. Okay, यहाँ पे curvature होता है at the bottom, and that allows the person to see without changing the glasses, nearby as well as far away. But a lot of people don't like it. Okay, so what they want to do is they want to wear progressive glasses. These progressive glasses are a bit costly. Okay, and you will not be able to see that. In a progressive lens, what happens is the focal length changes from the top to the bottom, but very gradually, from negative to positive, very slowly. Okay, and therefore it is not visible to the naked eye, but it is changing, and therefore the person can read and see far away. But it takes a little time to get used to it. But what is presbyopia? Presbyopia is especially seen in older people. Sometimes in people 55 and 60 years old, they have presbyopia. They cannot see far away. They cannot read also clearly without glasses. And a combination of lenses, that is concave and convex, is used to correct this vision. Okay, this is because the power of accommodation has been lost. The ciliary muscles cannot contract properly, and they cannot expand properly. And as a result of which, the focal length of the natural eye lens, it cannot expand, that is, it cannot increase or decrease, and therefore you cannot focus far away, you cannot focus nearby. Okay, right. So such people are supposed to suffer from presbyopia. Okay, this is presbyopia. These days different types of, even contact lenses are used also. Okay, these blue questions in blue, that are all part of the PDF. Once I complete the lesson, I will pass it on to those students who are working, and I already have a list of those students who are working. Those who are not working, they don't deserve it. I'll be very honest with you. Some students are simply not working at all, and when the school reopens, this will not be repeated. There will not be enough time to repeat everything. It's not possible. Okay. Now you can see here that you can actually donate your eyes. Eyes are precious. Okay. When a person dies, whether he is buried or cremated, he no longer needs his organs, he no longer needs his eyes. But if he has a good pair of eyes, without any infection or anything, he can donate his eyes. And by donating his eyes, he can allow someone else to see properly. People who are blind, their vision can be restored, provided of course the blindness can be corrected. For example, in certain people the blindness cannot be corrected. It is almost permanent. Now giving them a new set of eyes, the upper part, the cornea is cut out. What happens, you see, when a person dies and he and his family have agreed to donate the eyes, then immediately they inform the eye bank. The doctors are informed. The doctors come quickly, and it takes only a few minutes for the doctor to remove the cornea, the white part and the black part. Okay, they remove the cornea, and after that the cornea is stored in special solutions. Okay, so it does not become bad. After all, it is a living tissue. Alright, it needs oxygen supply and nutrition also, otherwise it will become dead tissue. And then of course it is stored in special containers, and then when a person who requires corneal transplant, new set of corneas, you see a person whose cornea is completely damaged, their cornea can be changed and he can get vision once again. Lots of people in India suffer from such blindness which can be restored. Their vision can be restored. So donating your eyes, okay, once you die, you can write a sort of a letter, okay, and clearly stating that you wish to donate your eyes. In which case the process is very simple. Millions of people donate their eyes, just like they donate blood. You can also donate your eyes, and it can restore the vision of millions of people, not just in India, all over the world also. And it's a good thing, okay, something that your family will be proud of, a person who donates his eyes after death. But here there is something else. See, eyes must be removed within 4 to 6 hours after death, otherwise it becomes useless, because the tissue of the eyes will die without the blood. Okay, the eye bank must be contacted quickly, and the people from the eye bank, the ophthalmologists, the eye specialists, they will come and collect it. The eye bank team will remove the eyes at home of the deceased, the dead person, or even at the hospital. Eye removal takes only 10 to 15 minutes, not much. It is a simple process and does not lead to any disfigurement. The person who is dead, he will still look the same. The eyelids will be closed. That's all. Persons who were infected with or died because of AIDS or because of hepatitis B or C, okay, jaundice, hepatitis B and C, rabies, हड़कवा, कुत्ते काटने से, acute leukemia, blood cancer, tetanus, cholera, meningitis of the muscles and encephalitis. These such people cannot donate their eyes. Okay, they will not be able to. Otherwise, a normal person can donate. An eye bank will collect these tissues, or rather the eyes, and they will put them in special containers and store them. And when a person is found who needs the eyes, it will be donated, and you can help in restoring the vision to millions of blind people in such a way. All right, in such a manner. Refraction of light through a prism. Now let's go to the next part. Refraction of light through a glass prism. You see, you learned how light gets refracted through a rectangular glass slab. Okay, for parallel reflecting surfaces, as in a glass slab, the emergent ray is parallel to the incident ray. Okay, however, it is slightly displaced laterally. We have learned about glass prism. Okay, how refraction takes place through a glass prism. Now just see here, I want to show you, this is just description of that. You see, look at this prism. Now what is basically a glass prism? A glass prism is, obviously it is shaped like a pyramid. Okay, so it has got two triangular faces on the sides, two triangular, like a triangle. The bottom is rectangular, the sides are rectangular, in rectangle shape. The sides are rectangular, the bottom is rectangular, and on the sides it is triangular. So such a prism, okay, such a glass prism which we use in physics, it has got two triangular faces, and three, one at the bottom and two at the sides. They are lateral surfaces and they are rectangular in shape. Now what you see in the diagram out here is the triangular face, not the rectangular face. पीछे का पार्ट में रेक्टेंगुलर फेस होता है और उसके और पीछे फिर से ट्रायंगल होता है. ओके, now you can see a blue ray of light. Okay, I'm just showing you here. P, and suppose you take a cardboard. Okay, use drawing board instead of a cardboard. A drawing board is better. Okay, drawing board ले लो. Drawing board को ऊपर white paper, chart paper, white sheet of paper, stick it there with the help of drawing pins, the four corners. उसके बाद take a prism. Okay, put it on the paper somewhere in the center. Okay, in such a manner as it is shown in the diagram. Then from one side, on the opposite side, okay, you can fix two pins, and from the opposite side, see here for example at P and Q, two pins. Okay, two pins वहीं पर रख दिया है. You can use colored pins so you can see clearly. You can use colored pins so that from the other side you will be able to see very clearly. P और Q के ऊपर दो पिन लगा दो. Then from the other side of the prism, from on this side, okay, see the image formed of P and Q. They will be formed at R and S. तो R और S के ऊपर दूसरे दो पिन लगा दो. So now you have got four pins, P and Q, and their images R and S. Okay, R and S are the images of P and Q. और वहां पे इमेज के ऊपर हमने एक पिन लगा दी R और S के ऊपर. Alright. Now remove the glass prism. With the help of a pencil and scale, draw a line, straight line connecting P and Q. Okay, and the outline of the prism. Point E is the outline of the prism. Point F is the outline of the prism there. Okay, so from E connect it to F with a blue line, and from F connect R and S. So you will get PQ, this ray of light, PQ, blue ray of light. That is the incident ray of light. You get EF, that is the one which is inside, the refracted ray of light, because the light ray is now traveling inside glass. That is the refracted ray of light. And then from F, you get FRS, that is the emergent ray of light. It is called the emergent ray of light because it is coming out from the other side. So once again, PQ, the ray PQ, the ray of light PQ is the incident ray of light. E is the point of incidence. Okay, that is where the glass surface, AB is the glass surface of the prism. At point E, it begins to travel again inside the glass. The medium has changed from air to glass. Now at point F, it comes out. So ray FRS is the emergent ray, and ray EF, the ray of light EF, which is inside the glass, is called the refracted ray. Alright, so we have got three: incident ray, refracted ray, and emergent ray. Now at this point E, draw a perpendicular N dash. Okay, with a pencil and scale, draw a perpendicular. This N dash is called the normal at the point of incidence. Similarly, draw a normal M dash at point F. That is the point of emergence. At the point of emergence, draw a normal M dash. Okay. Now this angle is angle I between the incident ray and the normal. The angle formed between the incident ray and the normal at the point of incidence is called the angle of incidence. And here this is the angle of refraction, R, not reflection, refraction, the angle of refraction. Okay. Similarly here E is the angle of emergence. The ray of light is coming out, angle of emergence. Now if you extend this ray PQ backwards, and if you extend RS backwards, you get this green dotted line. And at this point G, see this point in the diagram G, there an angle is formed this way. Okay, an angle is formed. This angle at G is called the angle of deviation. This one, you can see D out marked out here. Okay, this angle D is the angle of deviation. Why is it called the angle of deviation? Because the ray of light was supposed to travel in this direction, from P to Q to E to G to H. Straight line. You see, the ray of light was supposed to travel in this straight line. But unfortunately, at this point, you see, it gets deviated and begins to go in the other direction. So this angle by which it goes down is called the angle of deviation. Okay. And now once again, I is the angle of incidence, R is the angle of refraction, E is the angle of emergence, and D is called the angle of deviation. And this A, the angle which is marked at A, you see this angle at A, that angle A is called the angle of the prism, where the two triangular faces, the rectangular faces also meet. That is called the angle of the prism. So angle A is the angle of the prism, I is the angle of incidence, R is the angle of refraction, and E is the angle of emergence. Angle D is the angle of deviation. by which the light bends, the amount by which the light bends. All right. So this experiment demonstrates the bending of light when it passes through a glass prism. In the previous chapter, we have studied about the bending of light when it passes through a glass slab, a rectangular glass slab. This is also the same thing, but instead of a glass slab, we have taken a glass prism. Okay, and we have seen how the ray of light bends. Okay, first towards the normal and then away from the normal. Okay, as the medium changes. Alright, all that is described in this paragraph out here. Okay, and the same things has been described out here. Alright, I may have written a few questions out here. You see, for example, here, what is the angle of deviation? All these question and answers are also given in the PDF. Okay, but when you study from this PDF of the chapter, it's important to study with me and write these questions also, so you can study. Make it a habit of studying the textbook. Some children simply do not want to read the textbook. They want ready-made digest or ready-made answers. They simply forget the most important thing, and the most important thing is the textbook. Okay, and that's why I'm teaching you how to read from the textbook. Read every single word. This is not a novel. This is not a storybook. It's a book which you need to study carefully. There is a difference between studying and reading for pleasure. You are studying here, not reading for pleasure. Alright, so there is a question out there. What is the angle of deviation? The answer is highlighted out here. Alright, then there may be other questions which are here. Okay, here, explain the refraction of light through a glass prism with the help of a diagram. This diagram and what I've highlighted. Don't worry about the answers. Okay, all this is there in the PDF, but I want you to come and go through with the whole chapter with me. So explain the refraction of light through a glass prism with the help of a diagram. Alright, this is important, and you need to study the whole chapter carefully. Alright, now the next part of the chapter here is dispersion of white light by a glass prism. Alright, let's see now. You see that sunlight which reaches us, it appears is whitish yellow in color, slightly yellow. Okay, some people would say it is slightly yellow, some people would say it's absolutely white, but we know it appears slightly yellow. This yellowish white light which comes from the sun, okay, it doesn't seem to have any other colors, but basically that light is not monochromatic, it is polychromatic. The word here is polychromatic light. I just insert that word out here. Okay, the word is polychromatic. Sunlight is polychromatic. What is polychromatic? Means having many colors. Having many colors. Okay, having many colors. That means this light is a light which has got many colors. So sunlight is a polychromatic. Monochromatic. Chroma means color. Chroma means color, poly means many, mono means one. Okay, blue light is monochromatic, one single color. Red light is monochromatic, but sunlight is polychromatic. It has got many colors, but we only see one color, because when all these colors combine, you get white light. Okay, so when white light is split into its colors, you will be able to see all the colors. And nature does it in a special way, in a rainbow. We love to see a rainbow. Okay, after it has rained a little bit, suddenly the clouds clear. There are some clouds, but the clouds begin to clear and you can see sunlight also. So in the opposite direction to the sun, the rainbow always appears in the opposite direction to the sun. So for example, if you see a rainbow in the morning, okay, the sun will be in the east and the rainbow will be in the west. In the evening, if you see a rainbow, generally you won't see a rainbow in the afternoon, but it could happen sometimes. Okay, but whichever the direction sun is there, in the opposite direction you will see the rainbow, right? So rainbow has a lot to do with the sunlight and the sunlight passing through particles of water. We'll come to that in a minute just now. So dispersion of white light. The word dispersion means to split. Dispersion means splitting of white light into its colors. Now we are going to just discuss this out here. Alright, let us just see here. Look at this, okay, look at this one. There is a question here. What is dispersion of white light, or what is splitting of white light? It is the same thing. Explained with the diagram. And what is a spectrum of light? Now let's answer these two questions out here. First of all, you see this is a prism, a triangular prism. just like you use in a laboratory. Okay, it's a pyramidal prism. Its shape is like that of a pyramid. Okay, it has got, as I said, two triangular bases on the sides, and the sides as well as the bottom are rectangular. Okay, now this prism, from one side, if you allow, for example, if you take a cardboard, through the cardboard you make a slit or a hole so that sunlight can pass through that hole, and allow that light to pass on the prism, to fall on the prism. Then the light, that sunlight, which is actually polychromatic, it has got many colors, it will pass through the prism. Okay, but when it passes through the prism, different colors of light bend at different angles. Why? Because you see, different colors of light travel at different speeds. Now this is the most important point. Why is the bending occurring at different levels? For example, look here, 7 colors, what is commonly called VIBGYOR: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow and orange. Okay, you can see the acronym here on the, I just highlighted it here, acronym VIBGYOR: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. The word acronym means a shortened word of the first letters of, for example, the word laser, LASER. Laser is not an abbreviation, it's an acronym. There is a difference between abbreviation and acronym. Okay, for example, laser, light, the first letter is light, L. Okay, amplification, A, by stimulated, S, stimulated emission, E, of radiation, R. So laser, LASER, is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. That is called an acronym. Similarly, the word VIBGYOR is also an acronym, shortened form of VIBGYOR: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. In that 7 colors in that particular order. Now look at the order in the diagram. Okay, you can see violet suffers the most bending, red suffers the least bending. Okay, and you can see that between these colors there are other colors. But what you must understand carefully here is, why do they bend? Why is it violet color bends maximum? Why is it the red color bends minimum? Because you see, these colors travel through glass at different speeds. When they travel through glass at different speeds, they, suppose for example violet, it is the slowest speed. The color violet travels through prism, the glass, at the slowest speed. So because it is longer time in the prism, it stays for a longer while in the prism, so it bends more. On the other hand, the red light travels fastest through the glass prism, and it spends very little time inside, and therefore it suffers least kind of bending. So you can see the splitting of white light, and the splitting of white light by a glass prism is called dispersion of white light. And not only that, those 7 bands, those 7 colors band is called the spectrum of white light. Okay, the 7 component colors of white light is called the electromagnetic spectrum. This is the spectrum. Okay, it's not really the electromagnetic spectrum, it is simply the spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum is different. I don't want to discuss, because electromagnetic spectrum consists of microwaves and radio waves and infrared waves and ultraviolet rays and all that. That is the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, it's beyond the scope of this book. Right now we just talk about the white spectrum. Okay, that is the spectrum of the light, visible light, which is split into its component colors. So this is not electromagnetic spectrum, it is simply the spectrum of white light. Okay, now as I said, white light, you can see in the diagram, the white light beam falls on the prism. It is supposed to travel along the black dotted line, but it does not. It undergoes bending, that is called refraction. But different colored lights bend differently because of the speed at which they travel. Okay, and you see a band of different colored light, and this band of different colored light is called the visible spectrum, spectrum of white light. And there are the 7 component colors, and they are in that order, and that order can be remembered by using the acronym VIBGYOR: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Red is the one which suffers the least bending because it travels fastest. Violet is the color which suffers the maximum bending because it travels slowest. Okay, these colors of white light, this is multicolored light. Okay, splitting of white light. Now you see, let us just suppose see the opposite. You see Sir Isaac Newton, the great physicist from England, he tried to split this. He was the first one to do it actually, split the white light into its component colors. Newton was a great mathematician and physicist. You can't study mathematics, you can't study physics without mathematics. That's impossible. And what he tried to do is, then he tried to combine the colored light into one single light again. That is called recombination. Alright, now let's see what recombination is here. See, first prism, look at the recombination of the spectrum of white light. First prism A, okay, in that prism white light falls from a slit, okay, this is a slit in a cardboard. From that, sunlight or white light falls on it. It undergoes splitting. Red is at the top, violet is at the bottom. This is prism P1, the first prism. Now place another inverted prism. Okay, this is important to remember. P2, prism P2 is the inverted prism. Place it very close to the first prism, but in the inverted position. The top is down now. Okay, so that split light, the 7 colors, will again pass through the second prism, but this time they will start combining, and when it comes out on the other side, it will be white light again. Okay, so you can see on the screen, when you see on the screen, you will see a single band of light, not multicolored light. So here this ray of light is single colored, and when it comes out on the other side, it is also white light. And what happened in the second prism? In the second prism, the rays of light of different colors recombine to form the white light. This is called recombination spectrum of white light. And a question I put out here is, what is recombination of spectrum of white light? When this question is asked, you should be able to answer with the help of the diagram. Always look at the number of marks for the question. If more marks, you will have to write better, longer answers, and if possible with the diagram also. Alright, now just a little bit about rainbows. Okay, now you can see a picture is shown out there of a rainbow in the sky. You can see different colors. Sometimes the rainbow is so nicely formed, you can see all the colors. Sometimes the rainbow is not formed very well. Sometimes the rainbow is completely semicircular. Okay, sometimes only a small part is seen. Recently, about 20-25 days back, in the morning, I saw the rainbow. Not only one rainbow, I saw 2 rainbows simultaneously. Okay, a double rainbow, and they both were absolutely crystal clear. Alright, when all the colors of the light spectrum pass through the second prism, they combine, and this is called recombination. This observation gave Newton the idea that sunlight is made up of 7 colors. It was Newton who first said that sunlight is actually made up of 7 colors. It appears white to us. Any light that gives a spectrum similar to that of sunlight is often referred to as white light. Okay, a rainbow is a natural spectrum appearing in the sky after a rain shower. You see, when there is heavy rain, you can't see the sun at all, so you won't see the rainbow. Okay, during the winter season there is no rain, so then you won't see the rainbow. But when it rains a little bit, okay, when there is moisture in the sky, and at the same time you see sunlight, then you will see the rainbow. Okay, what happens is that the tiny droplets of water hanging in the air, the tiny droplets of water act like a prism. A prism actually splits the white light, and here the same thing is done by droplets of water. You can see here a droplet of water is shown out here. Okay, you can see the figure just below the picture of the rainbow. You can see sunlight, white light. You can see the question is here, how is the rainbow formed? The answer is in this paragraph along with the diagram. You don't have to draw a rainbow, but you can draw this droplet of water. Okay, you can see sunlight hitting the raindrop, a very tiny droplets of water. It goes inside and it is refracted, bent inside. Okay, it bends. You can see the red light, it bends. Okay, then it undergoes internal reflection. It is refracted inside a couple of times, and then it re-emerges. When it emerges, that rainbow is seen. It splits into its component colors, and you can see a rainbow. A rainbow is a natural spectrum appearing in the sky after a rain shower. It is caused by dispersion or splitting of sunlight by tiny droplets of water present in the atmosphere. A rainbow is always formed in a direction which is opposite to, that of the sun. If it is in the morning, the rainbow will be in the west. If it is in the evening, the rainbow will be in the east. The water droplets act like small prisms. They refract and disperse the incident light and then reflect it internally and finally refract it out again. When it comes out of the raindrop, when it emerges, it splits into different colors. Due to the dispersion of light and internal reflection, different colors reach the observer's eye. Different colors, we can see different colors, and that's why we see a rainbow. Now some people often ask, that why is the rainbow not in a straight line? Why is the rainbow bent? Okay, you will always see it is bent in the shape of a bow. That is why it's called a bow, rainbow. Rain because it happens generally after the rain, and bow because it is shape of a bow and arrow. Okay, that's why it's called a rainbow. But why is it shaped like a rainbow? It is shaped like a bow because the atmosphere is also around the earth, and the earth is spherical. Okay, and therefore everything is going to be spherical in nature. The earth is not flat, and because the earth is not flat, the atmosphere is also not flat, and that's why it appears in the shape of a bow. You can also see a rainbow on a sunny day when you look at the sky through a waterfall. If you go close to a waterfall, the tiny droplets of water on the waterfall, they also act like prisms. Or through a water fountain. Some cities have got fountains. Okay, Veeraval doesn't have one, but some cities do. Within the sun behind you, you will be able to see small rainbows. But in this case, of course, the rainbows will not be very well formed. Okay, behind a waterfall or in front of a waterfall or near a fountain, those rainbows will be small and they will not be clearly formed. Alright, then we come to atmospheric refraction. This is the last section of this chapter. It's not a very lengthy chapter, easy chapter. This I'm going to carry on tomorrow and we'll be able to finish this. Alright, so that's enough for today. But once again, let me remind you, you must study this chapter thoroughly. That is why I'm taking you through the whole chapter, page by page. And then only after that, I'm giving you the question answers. And meanwhile, I'm highlighting all the important parts, writing questions, helping you to understand the chapter better. Some are doing it, some are not doing it. And those who are not doing it, well, best of luck for you. Okay? Thank you. Have a nice day.